Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello all. I hope you all are doing well. This is Dr. Angan Gupta, an assistant professor of Department of Management in Amrita Vishwavidyapitham in Bangalore. I welcome you all on behalf of Swayam Prabha, and I wish that you remember whatever we have discussed in our previous classes on perfect competition, and then we introduced market imperfection with monopoly and monopolistic competition. Today we will be discussing oligopoly, and which is another type of market imperfection but closer to monopoly. What we observe in oligopoly is, oligopoly is a market structure where we have small number of firms which are generally expected to be interdependent, or they either act independently but they are aware about what the other firms are doing, and and takes their decision accordingly, or they are completely interdependent even in their decision making. But only small number of firms where there exists some sort of interdependency. But what does this word oligopoly mean? Oligopoly, the word originates from the Greek word oligos, which means few, small number, right? And polys are the sellers, like monopoly. Mono is one, poly is seller, so one seller. Oligos is small, polys is sellers. So small number of sellers existing in a market. The extreme form of oligopoly is duopoly, where there are only two sellers, and monopoly, I say, that is the extreme form of market imperfection, where only one seller. But duopoly, duo means two, and poly means the number of sellers. Uh, so the approach we generally take to analyze the oligopolistic decision making, or the decision making or the strategies made by two interdependent firms existing in a market and competing against each other, or forming cartels, joining hands with each other, how they are going to take their decisions are generally mathematically done in game theoretic approach. The characteristics which define an oligopolistic market or its firms are: a few firms in the market, in the industry, they are there are some sorts of interdependence. There is a barriers to entry. There is a price rigidity in the market, um, and price rigidity means it will not fluctuate. They will be discussing. They will be um, thinking in terms of other decisions or strategies in order to change their price, and no unique pattern of price behavior. When we discuss about different sorts of oligopoly models, we will understand it more clearly, that how different pricing strategies vary. And that is why, as we cannot finally determine easily the pricing for a particular quantity, it is very difficult to draw a demand curve, because in demand curve, that the market, both the sellers and the consumers together, they interact with each other, and it is pretty obvious to identify a price for a given quantity with these interactions. But here, with the market imperfection, with consumers not having enough knowledge, with this, even the sellers may not have enough idea about each other's decision, they just assume. So it's very difficult to get a price quantity framework. So what we also observe in oligopolistic market, that the market powers are generally, the market powers a firm has generally defines the imperfect competition, and when it moves towards the monopoly, the market imperfection is more, and the firms have some price searching ability. Then it is a kind of an oligopoly market, and unlike the other market structures, we do not really follow the marginal revenue equals marginal cost, at least for as long as we discuss our models by a large extent. Of course we do practically, but theoretically when we study um, we can you know keep it aside, or sometimes we think that marginal cost is zero. We'll discuss about them. What we generally we look at the demand curve. It's an average revenue curve, right? From the monopoly or monopolistic competition, we have learned that the demand is the average revenue curve, and marginal revenue curve is just half of its slope, steeper half of its slope, closer towards the y-axis. And we will be looking at this demand curve more, and will determine the output level based on the average revenue or the demand curve. Now, the oligopoly versus monopolistic competition, comparative analogy tells us that a perfect competition, or in a monopolistic competition, they have a non-strategic behavior. They do not strategize based on what other firms are doing. Whereas in oligopoly market, the oligopolist will form strategies to identify the prices, to will identify the market shares and revenues, the quantity of output produced. Market share means how much they will produce, and all this will be closely observed. So they are more, they are lesser competitive, of course, as compared to monopolistic competition, even as well. And so in monopolistic competition, unlike in monopolistic competition, in oligopoly, the threat of the rivals are minimal. And the to sustain in the business in an oligopoly market, they have to strategize, unlike in monopolistic competition. So a few points what we can observe in terms of the strategy making, or how an oligopoly will determine its competitive rivalry, are barriers to exit, that whether someone wants to exit, whether it is how, or even enter, what is the level of barrier, how strong the barrier is. Multiple equal competitors, remember, equal competitors. Sluggish growth within the industry. If the growth within the industry is slow, then what they can do. Higher fixed cost. If the fixed cost, that means even the basic investments required, that will also determine the competitive rivalry, that if someone is ready to absorb that, it's good. In a sluggish growth within the industry, a farm will not be getting profit immediately, or growth to its scales of production immediately. So they have to, for a longer period of time, probably they have to keep their profit minimum, or maybe at the normal profit condition they have to run. uh, Undifferentiated products. So it's important that they differentiate their product to make a statement for their product, that yes, we are unique, we are different, and we offer this to the consumers, so that they can get a considerable share of the market, catering to the consumers demand. Switching cost. If you are moving from, for the consumers, if they are moving from one brand to another brand, is there a strong switching cost. If the consumers are losing a lot, if I am moving from, say, Apple to Nokia, if it does not cost me anything, then it will be easier for me to shift. But if it can be opportunity cost as well. If I am losing a lot, maybe some features I need to compromise, and I am compromising that because I am getting Nokia at a cheaper rate or something like that, then I will think, that if that feature is important or not. So if the switching cost is low, then the competitiveness will be higher. Rise in the capacity, so it can be the technology that I bring important technologies, I bring more productive technologies, and naturally I can produce at a lower cost. My marginal cost or average total cost will be lower than the others, so I can operate in economies of scale. So it will be better for me. I can produce larger quantity at a given budget, isn't it? Diversity of competition, that if I can segment, or if I can supply to different markets, or different kinds of products, then that will give me an added advantage and strategic focus altogether, that how they are identifying, how efficiently they are identifying markets policies, or their competitors policies, or the macroeconomic policies as well, and how quickly they respond to it. That is also important. uh, there are four types of oligopoly. Basically, the most distinctive feature of an oligopolistic industry is basically the interdependence among sellers. In its own decision making, every firm takes into account that what other firms are doing, and hence it is very, very important. Oligopoly market can be classified on the basis of two aspects. Number one, specific assumptions about the actions and reactions. That is the interdependence, that what others are doing and what I will do in response to them, or what step I should take, assuming that what others are doing. That is the interdependence we are talking about, and we have not talked about this interdependence either in perfect competition, monopoly, or monopolistic competition. Monopoly, so there is no chance of interdependence, because you are the only seller or only supplier, right? You are the industry, only one firm. Here in oligopoly, only few, and to make them really relevant, important to the market, they have to take these strategies, right? So this action and reaction in terms of the quantity of output they will produce, in terms of the price they will choose to for their market, everything is a part of this strategy making. And second is the nature of the product, that the differentiation, that we know probably that when we look at certain types of brands, like certain types of cars, say smaller cars, Hyundai and Marutis are more popular for the smaller cars. Larger cars, probably Honda. SUVs are probably, Mahindra are more popular for SUVs. So there are different cars. Or in terms of bike, we know that Enfield Bullet is a expensive segment. Duke or KTM is young sports bike types, whereas TVS or Suzuki are more specialized. They have captured a larger market in scooter, even, or the lower segment of bikes, whereas Hero Honda has a larger, middle range offerings. So they have different kinds of products where they try to, okay, fine, I will offer say 5 kinds of products, but I will be specializing mainly here, so that I have a distinct um, identification, recognition within the market. That is very, very important for any oligopolistic market. So that four types of oligopoly told you about: homogeneous oligopoly, differentiated oligopoly, number two, and the other two are collusive oligopoly, non-collusive oligopoly. So first classification is homogeneous and differentiated, homogeneous or pure oligopoly, and differentiated. The second classification is collusive and non-collusive. Under collusive oligopoly, cartels, and non-collusive, it is rivalry and theory of games. Cartels. Cartels is the joining of hands. We are coming to that. So, homogeneous or pure oligopoly, as the name suggests, homogeneous. Homogeneous means similar. It's the same kind of product. So, products of different firms are homogeneous. We also observe this in perfect competition. They are similar or nearly homogeneous if they are not absolutely similar. So, the products of different firms are homogeneous. price differences between the products will be rather insignificant, because as they offer the same kind of product, they cannot be different in terms of the pricing mechanism. There are interdependence among sellers, because everyone produces same, and if I know that you are producing the same thing, I cannot say we produce the same kind of pens. And if I see that I'm selling this pen at 5 rupees and you are also selling it at 5 rupees, I cannot suddenly charge it for 6 rupees, because everyone is expecting that to be sold at 5 rupees and everyone else is selling it in 5 rupees. You are selling it 5 rupees, so all my customers will go from me to you to get it in 5 rupees. I cannot charge 1 rupee extra. So there are certain interdependence, and I need to know that what prices are being charged by others, what is the market share they are capturing and all. So whenever a seller changes the price of his product, the sales of the rival sellers will be affected. And the second one is differentiated oligopoly. They are slightly different products, and price of one seller has less direct effect upon others, because I am producing only dot pens and you are producing pencils. The purpose are very different, right? So even if I use both of them to write, and your friend is producing markers, or the sketch pens, green, red, yellow, all of this can be used for writing, but the purpose are absolutely different, right? And hence, if I change my price, you are least bothered about that, because those who are writing in pencils, they will not suddenly shift to a child, will not start writing with dot pens or with gel pens or with sketch pens, right? When they study ABCD or A, K, Kha. Whereas if I am signing something, I will require a pen. I will not do that with either with pencil or a sketch pen, or I will not paint something. So the purposes are different, and I am not bothered about what others are doing. If I have got a market with me, so price change of one seller has limited impact on its rival sellers, and lesser interdependence naturally among the sellers, because they are all producing the different kinds of products, right? The second kinds of classification are collusive oligopoly and non-collusive oligopoly. So what is the main feature of collusive oligopoly? Collusion. It's the, it's very difficult to remember. It's very difficult to remember the market in terms of the in terms of the interdependence they have. So here we talk about the kind of mutual agreement, the kind of um, you know the kind of collusion which is opposite to collision. Collision means bang, fighting. Collusion means joining hand. Collision, I call you. So a collusion is basically when only few, it cannot be a lot of firms, only few firms are discussing among themselves, forming a strategy together and trying to survive together, or if not survive, trying to capture the market, dominate the market together, and keeping away the smaller ones. So form of market in which few firms form a mutual agreement to avoid competition. So there can be 10 small firms. Three of them decide that, okay, we are friends and we will be identifying our topics and everything, the products and prices and quantity together, and we will be mutually, hum sat sat hai type, we will be together. And that is how they try to join hands, strategize, so that the rest 7 lose their market share. So and the prime feature is joining 3, every, say all 10 have 10%, 10% market share. These 3 decide that we will all be together, we will kind of merge, and then we will have 30%, and we will decide the price which will favor us, which will benefit us. And if we can decide the price, So that will give me an added advantage to dominate the market, and slowly we can reduce the price, we can increase the price, we can play around. What happens, they will not they will be, before they strategize themselves, we are strategizing much ahead and getting the market uh, you know working in favor of us, and we get a profit. What we observe in this diagram is that, you see, in a perfectly competitive market, or kind of, there are two different markets, or even in a monopolistic competition market, there are two different markets. One is market A is manufacturing at the normal profit, so the price line is exactly at average cost minimum point through which marginal cost is cutting across, and so it does not have any profit. Over here, for price for farm B, it has got certain amount of profit, um, and you can observe the price and marginal cost is same. If you go back to your perfect competition class, that you can see that price and marginal cost are similar, and that will give us the uh, output or production, and it is the price is above the average cost. Look at my cursor, the arrow. So this is my profit, this area will be my profit. So anyways, A and B together, if they form a cartel, then at C, both A plus B, this is the market demand, and then they observe that the total amount is Q, which is nothing but Q1 plus Q2, and now the market becomes an imperfect market, and you can see the marginal revenue and the demand curve is downward sloping. And now, in terms of this monopolistic competition, even if you keep it as monopolistic competition, you see we are identifying the output, or monopoly, we are identifying the output, profit maximizing output, through which first thing is marginal revenue and marginal cost is intersecting. Yes, you get the output. For this output, how much? So this is your cost, this is your cost with the marginal cost curve. What is your price? You can also get a marginal cost, average total cost, to get a better this thing idea. So you can get an average total cost, and then this will be your cost, and the price is higher than that, and hence you can get a profit, monopolist profit. So, in most of the countries, cartels are illegal. That's because there can be few market players who want to dominate the market. They join their hands together and try to increase the price, exploiting the consumers. Now, the consumers may not have a good idea about what should be the price and all, so they will be being overcharged, right? So that is why it is not the best idea to allow forming these cartels. However, what happens that, so that is why that thinking of the consumers protection and all, consumers right, so the cartels are not legal. But what happens these days, that even if there are cartels, so they will not really increase the price at an extent where the profit will be very, very high, and that will encourage other new entrants to join the market, which eventually will, at the end of the day, increase the competition for the existing firms who have formed the cartel. So this is not really the best practice to or not a very strategic or very intelligent, wise decision to increase the price at an extent which will certainly give me a larger profit, but at the end of the day, within few years, that will increase the competition significantly. The second thing is that they so what they do, they continue charging higher than competitive price, that is that higher than the marginal cost, but slightly higher, not too high. So how they can, the cartels, why the cartels do not really last for long? That is, the product changes, right? The demand changes with the technology, the characteristics, the features, with the innovation, the taste and preference of the consumers do change. The imports, with the imports, new entrants can come. So there are certain, so with the change in the market structure, on the preference, they are the importance of the current suppliers products will go down, and therefore the cartel may not form, and someone will try to break the cartel and try to do something on their own, because within the cartel they are now handicapped, they cannot take the advantage of the changing environment. The entry of new firms will be challenging to those cartels, and the disagreement among the members can happen because of this strategic, you know, the strategically they may not be on the same page for a long time. So what we observe that there can be the second type of, so when there is no collusion, no cartel is formed among the market players or the suppliers, there can be non-collusive oligopoly where they work independently rather than interdependently. So there is no chance to form a cartel. So, but they still acknowledge that their decision making or their market share, their quantity of production, their price making will be affected by others, right? So there are rivals who, if I am taking a decision, my rival decision making will be affected, or my rival's business will be affected, and vice versa. Their decision can also affect me or will also affect mine. So what do we observe that in a in a competitive framework, that in a competitive industry, every individual firm will only produce something like OQ1, a small share. For an oligopoly market, their economies of scale will be, because that is the downward sloping curve of part of long run average cost curve, will sustain for a longer period of time, and their market share will be larger. So unlike competitive industry where they will be producing OQ1, now they enjoy a long run average cost curve sloping downwards for a longer period of time, and that can give them a chance to produce OQ2 much higher than OQ1. And if there is a government imposed barrier, if there are patent rights and all, even if their cost curve is increasing, as long as they can meet the demand, so and the consumers are ready to pay that price because of the lesser competition I face, so I can still enjoy a larger, so see the, I can still enjoy a larger share or a monopoly profit. So there are several aspects which define an oligopolistic market structure. Number one is price war, and of course that trickles down to the quantity, the war of the quantity of production or the market share. And this price war or the market share will be completely affected by the product innovation, which is nothing but the differentiation. So the innovation based on the consumer's choice, consumer's preference, and all. So even if there is a competitive market or the competition is increasing, I have to keep myself updated. I have to bring innovative models, attractive models, and I need to be very, very catchy in terms of my advertising, right? So that I can attract more consumers towards me. But generally, firms avoid price competition. They prefer non-price competition. Why? This is primarily because, say, there are two firms. An example of duopoly. There are two firms. Firm A increases the price, from a certain level, and if the firm A is increasing the price, there is another firm, its competitor, its rival, firm B, it will not increase the price. So what happens when firm B's price for the same kind of product is lower than price firm A? So what happens? The consumers from farm A will shift to farm B because farm B is offering the similar kind of product at a lower price. So farm A will lose the market. So if someone, and farm B will gain the market. So if someone is increasing the price, its rivals will 100% not increase the price. Yes, at least in non-collusive one. So what instead, if the price decreases, Farm A's price decreases, Farm B will be forced to decrease its price, or will, because if Farm B does not decrease the price, whatever market share Farm B gets, that will come to Farm A. So Farm A will enjoy the benefit of its declining price, and Farm B will be completely wiped off the market. So when one farm decreases the price, the other follows it. But if one firm increases the price, the others do not. So it is a kinked demand curve, what we observe over here. And what is kinked demand curve? Showing in this diagram in a non-collusive oligopoly setup is the above segment is our elastic demand curve, and the bottom segment here is an inelastic demand curve. So an elastic demand curve is a flatter demand curve, whereas an inelastic demand curve is a steeper demand curve. If you do not remember what is elasticity of demand, I will remind you that an elasticity is the responsiveness of quantity demanded with the rise in 1 unit change in price, or with 1 unit change in price, rise or fall. So if the price of my product increases by 1 unit or 10%, let us take it like that, price happened by 10%, quantity demanded decreases by more than 10%, then this is basically an elastic demand curve. If I increase my price by 10%, but my quantity demanded decreases by less than 10%, then this is actually an inelastic demand curve. So if you see over here, if my price I increase it by 1 unit, say from here to here, my quantity demanded falls by this much, right? So I increase my price by this much, my quantity demanded falls by this much, and hence if it is in percentage say form, it is elastic, right? But when I decrease my price over here by 1% or 10%, say from here to here, my decrease in quantity demanded is smaller, right? Hence this is a inelastic demand curve. Here we again observe an extension of the kinked demand curve is again from this diagram we can see, I'm sorry for the quality of diagram, so over here it's that elastic part, and this one is the inelastic part. This is the marginal revenue curve, double the slope of this average revenue or demand curve, and this is the marginal revenue curve with respect to this one, again double the slope of this average revenue curve or the demand curve. Most importantly, what we observe in such oligopolistic framework, that there is a disconnect or discontinuity in the marginal revenue curve over here, and the marginal cost curves will pass through this discontinuous or the vertical segment of this diagram of this marginal revenue curve, and we will find an equilibrium on the kink where the price will be P and the quantity demanded will be Q. So that equilibrium will be P, the market equilibrium for both the firms will be at the price P, and the quantity demanded supplied will be Q, where the marginal revenue is equals to the marginal cost. Hence, in this we find, because over here till Q with this DE demand, we observe that the marginal revenue is DA. With the demand of EC, we observe the marginal revenue is B something BMR, and hence here is this disconnect. All right. So this discontinuity is especially because of this kink. So this MR is half of the slope of this demand curve, this demand segment, elastic part, and this MR curve is the half of this segment, which is inelastic part when the price is declined. So how companies generally adopt strategies to fight different market conditions? One is multiple equal competitors. When the competition is very high, everyone is serving similar kind of product, equal amount of product, then the companies need to be very aggressive in its strategies. They either can form cartel or can decrease the price or limit their profit aspirations and all, they can go for advertisement to gain more market share, or have to be very innovative. For a sluggish growth within the industry, they have to just sit back, and as long as they can cover their cost, they need to continue. And the moment the scenario improves, they can enjoy the benefit. That is primarily because because with the sluggish growth they cannot really gain the market, because the consumers demand will not support that. And what would, like, taking of this class example, that now because of this corona pandemic we are learning from each other in this online mode, may not be the best one. You cannot ask me a question, I cannot clarify you, I cannot show you this diagram in the board. So there are certain problems, but will we waste our 1 year time? No. If the corona runs for 1 year, it's almost 5-6 months now, so we cannot do that. So what we will do, we will continue studying this way, we will learn from this TV, and we will go back to the books, we will try to understand, so that next year when we get advanced to the next class, we can take the benefit. Now those who are learning now and keeping them updated, and managing, coping up with the situation, they will not struggle when the situations become normal, when there is a growth, right? But if a farm cannot really cope up now, then they will not get the benefit. I cannot earn loss, and or I cannot expect a huge amount of profit. Higher fixed cost is something where it is difficult to achieve an economies of scale, because the cost of production is high. An initial investment required will be very high, so it will be difficult for them. So they need to produce at the full capacity in order to achieve an economies of scale, and they need to continue for a long time, so that the average fixed cost goes down. An undifferentiated product generally happens where there is higher competitions, and then the firms have to be aggressive, as I said, either with advertisements or with certain innovations, so that they can differentiate to some extent. If there is no switching cost, as I discussed it again earlier, that if the consumers can shift from one product to another product, or one farm to another farm easily, then, or one brand to another brand easily, then the substitutability is very clear. Then there is higher competition, and if the consumers do not lose anything, then there is no differentiation. So the oligopoly market will be weak. So the firms need to strategize accordingly. So for the time being, when it's a close to perfectly competitive market, or in a competitive market, or in a market which is not seeing a lot of growth, they may be sluggish, and they need to sacrifice on short-term profitability. They cannot expect a monopoly like profit, so they need to sacrifice some short-term profitability to ensure their presence, their existence, their business in the longer term in that larger market. So we will be discussing, around 4 or 5 types of oligopolistic framework or models. Starting with Kurno, what Kurno said, that farms choose quantity of production. Remember, quantities. Farms choose quantities. Kurno, quantity. So farms choose quantities in Kurno model independently, and industry output is determined by the price. So determined is the price through demand. So the quantity, if this is the quantity, this will be the price. So for Kurno, quantity comes first, and the profit, the price cost margin, is generally estimated by the share of the market that farm or different farms are enjoying, and that farm's market share will be divided by the elasticity of demand. Again, the responsiveness of the quantity if the price is being changed. Therefore, the share of the market divided by the elasticity will determine the profit. Now, higher the elasticity, that means if I increase my price, consumers easily moving to other products. Higher the elasticity, lower will be the profitability, right? Higher will be the competition. At the same time, Higher market share will ensure higher price cost margin. If I have a larger market share, naturally I have a price searching or price determining making ability, so I can get a larger profit. This this capability, this capacity is of or the amount, the measurement of the monopoly, the is so this. So how we measure the market imperfection, or the the kind of dominance a firm has in the market is generally measured with the Hirschman-Herfindahl index, Hirschman-Herfindahl index, HHI index, which is measured with the determined by the market share enjoyed by each farm. And we have discussed it in our previous class. I'm discussing it again. So in that HHI, this is H measurement is the summation of square of each farm's market share. So if there are 4 farms, then share of farm 1, share of farm 2, share of farm 3, share of farm 4, and their individual squares. Like say, if the farm distribution is 40%, 25%, 20%, and 15%, then 0.4 whole square, 0.25 whole square, 0.2 whole square, and 0.15 whole square, and we get the value. If H is equals to 1, then it's a monopoly market, because they have one farm and it's 100% share. So 100% is 100 by 100. So 1 whole square is 1. So HHI equals 1 is it's a monopoly market. When it reduces, moves closer to 0, that means the farm is being increasingly competitive. Coming to this, Kuno monopolies, oligopolies, diagrammatic framework, what we observe that it's basically, now we are explaining it in terms of a duopoly initially. So what happens that, say there is one farm initially, A, who produces, there is the market demand. Look at the diagram very carefully. The market demand is OM. The marginal cost is 0. So the marginal cost curve will be just the x-axis, the output curve, right? Just the x-axis. So marginal cost is 0. The market demand is OM, right? So if DM is the demand curve, so what will be the marginal revenue curve? The marginal revenue curve can be shown by DQ. How double the slope of this average revenue curve. And how do we determine the profit maximizing output? Where MR equals MC. MC being the x-axis, our profit maximizing output is where MR intersects the MC, that is point Q. So farm A will manufacture OQ, extend it upwards, it touches the demand curve, price P. What will be the price? P2. So OQ quantity will be produced by OP2 price, at the OP2 price, produced and sold at the price OP2. Now B joins the market. When B joins the market, it says that the OQ is already out. They can only manufacture QM. So if they can manufacture QM, their demand curve is basically PM. DP is out now. So their demand curve is PM. So if they are manufacturing, their market, the available market for them is QM, their demand is PM. What will be their marginal revenue curve? Just opposite to this average revenue curve, just steeper to this average revenue curve, which is PN. So where we see that at the point N, the MR intersects MC. So therefore, the output that they will produce, farm B, will be QN, not ON. Remember, only QN, because their demand is PM. This is their demand curve. Now we are just looking here. This is for farm B, right? So they will now produce QN, because whatever they will produce, they will try to get a profit, right? A positive profit. So what price they will set now to produce QN? Price P1. Now price P1 is lesser than P2. If P1 is lesser than P2, A will lose its market, because consumers will see that, okay, B is selling at P1, I will go to P1 to B. So A will lose its market, and then A will reduce the price, right? And then A will A's market share decreases, B's market share increases. When B gets a significant market share, B increases the price, and then A decreases the price. And this is how they do, back and forth, back and forth. So first A decides the price, then B decides the price. When B gets the market share with a lower price, then B has the advantage, then A follows the suit. So it is being simultaneously, sometimes A, sometimes B, sometimes A, sometimes B. And finally, an equilibrium is achieved when each A and B has 1/3 of its market share. The rest 1/3, so 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3. The rest 1/3 will be taken by someone else or some other group of firms. We are not discussing about that. So now that will be my equilibrium in the Cournot's oligopoly. There is a modification based on Cournot's oligopoly, that is Stackelberg's duopoly. Duopoly, again, two firms. It states that unlike Cournot or Bertrand, we have not discussed Bertrand yet, let us consider only Cournot. Unlike Cournot, which is talking about simultaneous A B, Stackelberg says it's a sequential game theory. What is sequential game theory? That one firm will be leader, the other firm will be follower. So the leader will take a decision, they will have a higher brand recognition, they will have a stronger market share. A will decide first, and B will be the follower. And it is always A leader, B follower, A leader, B follower, never B becomes leader. So it's a sequential game. First A decides with a higher brand recognition, with a larger market share, they decide the quantity, and then B follows whatever decision A has made, right? Observing the decision they are taking. Now coming to the Bertrand duopoly, what we observe that Bertrand now brings another change in Cournot's model. Bertrand says, okay, fine, it is simultaneous. So both Bertrand and Cournot says it is simultaneous. Stackelberg says it is sequential. Bertrand, Cournot says simultaneous, Stackelberg says sequential. But Cournot says it is quantity which is determined first. Bertrand says no, it is price which is more logical, right? So, but both of them, all three of them assume that the products are closely homogeneous in nature. And what Bertrand says that, when both the firms will set at a price which is equals to the marginal cost. That will be my equilibrium. If one firm sets equals to the marginal cost, then if the other firm raises its price above the cost, say if one firm raises the price above the marginal cost, it is gaining a profit. What other will do will keep its price just exact to the unit cost or marginal cost, and so that they can keep a price lower, and whatever the profit other was enjoying, so it will not be enjoying that, but instead it will get the market share, and slowly it will get a market decision making power, because the other one is charging higher, and with a profit it will not survive long, because the consumers will move to this one which is charging marginal cost, price equals marginal cost. But if someone is charging price equals marginal cost, the other cannot raise the price. So what happens that basically if both the firms charges its prices more than marginal cost, then what happens? Then say if the price is 5 rupees, both of them charges 7 rupees, then what happens that say A and B both charges 7 rupees, marginal cost is 5 rupees. A can decide, no, I will charge 6 rupees. I will still earn a profit, but I will get all the customers from A. From B, who is still charging 7 rupees, right? So there is a lot of uncertainty. So if both of them are charging above the unit cost or marginal cost, one always has an incentive to reduce the price little bit to gain the market. It will never give you an equilibrium. Final equilibrium will be at the marginal cost. So this is what is shown in the diagram. This is my marginal cost. Yes, for P1 and P2. P1, price of 1 in the y-axis, price of 2 on the x-axis, a 45-degree line. it shows that P2 double prime P1 is the price of 2 looking at the price of 1. P1 double prime P2 is the response of response of farm 1 looking at the farm 2. So what we generally see that if the price of farm 2 is less than the marginal cost, then price of farm 1 will be equals to marginal cost, because price of farm 2 cannot survive keeping a price which is less than marginal cost. That is basically it will not survive for a long time, earning a loss. If the price of 2 is greater than the marginal cost, then say 7 rupees, marginal cost is 5 rupees, then farm 1 will keep the price slightly lesser than the farm 2. So it will be 6 rupees when the farm 2's price is 7 rupees, so that it gets the market share. If price 2 is greater than the monopoly price, then price 1 will be the monopoly price. So this is how it happens. Again, sequential, simultaneous, and the equilibrium will be achieved where exactly the defined price equals marginal cost. Coming to the Chamberlain's oligopoly model, it is similar to the Cournot's model, but what is the difference what we find in Chamberlain, unlike Cournot or Bertrand, is here there is interdependence. In Cournot or Bertrand, there was no, so they do not consider an interdependence. Okay, so here they consider an interdependence, a kind of collusion. In Cournot and Bertrand, there were interdependence, but they were acting independently, right? Kind of non-collusive. They were acting independently, like say what happens in kind of homogeneous oligopoly. Here they will act interdependently, but the structure is similar to Cournot's. What happens that again the same thing, marginal revenue equals marginal cost equals 0. So the marginal cost curve is the x-axis itself, and A is the first mover in the market, and A produces, so the market demand is OQ. A produces based on the marginal revenue curve, because the demand curve is DQ, marginal revenue is twice steeper than DQ, the AR curve. So the profit maximizing output will be where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and the price determined will be P1. So firm A earns a profit. Firm B now enters. Firm B, similar to Cournot, okay? Firm B now has a demand curve which is CQ, and at CQ, at C the elasticity is 1, okay? At CQ they find that, this is my demand and I can maximum supply Q1Q, but in order to increase its profit or keep a positive profit, it will produce Q2, because MC is the x-axis, marginal cost, and its marginal revenue curve intersects the marginal cost. The second dotted line intersects the marginal cost at Q2. So Q2 will be its profit making output, and the price will be determined by the demand curve, which is P2. Now B charges lower price than that of A. P2 is less than P1, and therefore B will gain the market, because A's consumers will now shift to B. Now what happens? In Cournot, we have seen that A's demand will come down, B's demand will increase, and then B will charge a higher price, A will decrease its price, and then it goes back and forth. So like that. What happens over here? Over here, when B enters the market and B produces Q1, Q2 as price P2, A will not produce Q1 at the same price, or they will slowly gradually decrease the price. No, what A will do, A will charge a price which is equal to B. So at this price P2, A will now supply Q3, which is exactly half of what it was supplying earlier, OQ1. So OQ3 is half of OQ1, right? And B is supplying Q1, Q2. Now together, because Q1, Q2 is equals to, will always be equal to because of the slope being half of the demand curves. So what we observe that Q1 Q3 will be equal to Q1 Q2. So let us assume that B is supplying Q1 Q3, A is supplying OQ3. So the total market share is OQ1 and they are charging price P2. So they think that if they are supplying OQ1 at P2, they will try to understand that we collectively can increase the price. So they will increase the price P1 till P1 and get the entire market share, because their market share is OQ3 and Q31 similar at the price P2, and they can together increase the price till P1, and A produces OQ1, B can produce OQ, right? Interdependently. So this is the Chamberlain's model. So I repeat again. So what happens first? Cournot based on quantity, similar kind of product, right? Homogeneous product, and they are independent largely of each other's decision. Comes Stackelberg. Okay, then Bertrand. Bertrand says no, it's not quantity, it's basically price, which makes more sense. Everything else remains similar. Then comes Stackelberg. Stackelberg says, okay, it's fine, they are independent of each other, but it's not simultaneous, it's sequential. First there is a leader and there is a follower, and it is always like that. The leader will remain leader, the follower will remain follower. Fine. There comes Chamberlain. Chamberlain says that unlike Cournot and Bertrand, it's not independent, it is interdependent, and the firms will try to charge a monopoly price. Yes, if they are working interdependently, a stable equilibrium can be reached. Yes, and the oligopoly market, market share or the power, the concentration will be stronger. The last model is Edgeworth's duopoly model. In the Edgeworth's duopoly model, again, there are two firms which are very identical in its characteristics, similar. So you can see in this diagram, firm A is in the right hand side and firm B is the left hand side. I mean, right hand side of U and left hand side of U will be firm B. So ODA is the and ODB is the total demand. So DADB is the total market demand. OM is the total capacity of supply by firm A. OM prime is the total supply capacity of firm B. A has entered the market first. Okay, A has entered the market first. B is not in the market now. What A does, A charges OP2 and supplies OQ. A charges price OP2 and supplies OQ, a positive profit. Now what B does, B enters the market and charges slightly lower price than P2, somewhere here between P2 and P1, slightly lower price than P2, and captures a good share of market of A, okay, charging lower price. And then what A does, A reduces the price further. Okay, after A reduces the price, A will snatch away all these markets. So the total demand is ODA and ODB in the market. Now this price war will continue till they reach OP1, because at OP1 A can produce OM and B can produce OM prime. Okay, so beneath that, even if they reduce the prices, they cannot produce more than OM. They cannot produce ODA, neither B can produce ODB. So what they do, they have reached its maximum capacity. Now A thinks, okay, B has reached its maximum capacity, or B thinks A has reached its maximum capacity. Now if I increase the price, and if I increase the price and consumers shift to A, B thinking, if I increase the price and consumers are shifting to A cannot produce anymore because it does not have that capacity. It's full, right? All the resources are exhausted. So if I increase the price, I will gain a profit, if not the market, a positive profit, because I am not losing the market, right? No one is leaving me, because even if they are going to A, it's a duopoly, even if they are going to A, there is no other, right? Duopoly. A cannot supply them, so they will come back to me. So I can increase the price. And now A thinks, people are going to B, even if they are charging slightly above OP1. I should also charge OP1, because if B is charging OP1, why can't I? And this will again lead to a price war. And again, it will move back and forth, back and forth. So somewhere the equilibrium will be reached around OP1, and that will be the, and they will be producing at their maximum capacity. Yes, this is the Edgeworth duopoly model, and we will stop here with our oligopoly lecture, which is lecture number 11. We'll have 3 more lectures, and they are on game theory, um, economics externality, and positive externality, negative externality, and all. And there will be public good, private good. So these are the 3 classes left. See you. Take care. See you in our next class. Bye bye.